Hello everyone, I welcome you all once again to Raj e-Samvaad YouTube channel, a channel of digital creation and distribution of knowledge. Our YouTube channel, as you all know, is a unique initiative started by Raj College DU to make knowledge more accessible and to impart quality lectures to students and everyone. I am Piyush Chaudhary. Currently I am working as an assistant professor at the Department of English at Raj College. As you all know, this is the third lecture, in the ongoing lectures on Anandamath by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. The novel is a part of the VAC titled Reading Indian Fiction in English. You already have access to the other two lectures on this topic. You will find it in the playlist that I'll be sharing very soon. The third lecture today, this third lecture will be on the various characters of the novel. I'll be doing a detailed character analysis of the various characters in the novel Anandamath. So a detailed character analysis will now follow. But before that, let us see the kind of characters and their names and how each name is symbolic of something. In this novel, each and every name in this novel and each and every name of the sannyasi is emblematic. And if you notice closely, you will realize that they are basically symbolic of something. Right? These names are important to notice and each name carries a certain meaning. For example, let us take the leader of the clan and his name is Satyanand. Satyanand, which means truth, right? Then you have Gyananand, which means knowledge. Gyan is knowledge, isn't it? And then similarly, what about Bhavanand? The one of the major characters. Bhavanand, Bhav means emotions. Dhiranand basically means, having dheeraj, having patience, right? Or endurance. Jivanand is one more character in this novel, which basically means life. So you see how each character represents what? A virtue in itself. And these are the virtues that each member of the Santan clan should exhibit. The sannyasis, as we know, are fighting the Mughals and the British in the novel, and they have made certain strict rules for themselves, right? And are virtuous in that sense. So each Anand, or I would say each member of the Mutt, represents this virtue. Even though some members like Bhavanand and Jivanand, they commit mistakes in their life, but they do not shy away from giving their life for the nation. Overall, the names, the various names represent the guiding principles of the mutt, of the monastery, rather than individual traits. So each and every element is a guiding principle. Having good emotions, having patience, having courage, being truthful, these are all emotions and these are individual traits, right? So the names are emblematic and they are symbolic of the virtues that are needed to free a nation from oppressive rule. So let us now go to the character analysis of some of the most important characters in the novel. So I'm going to talk about the very first character. His name is Mohendra. He is a zamindar, he's a landowner who, along with his wife Kalyani, the novel begins with Mohendra and Kalyani, and they are in a situation where they are in a dire situation and there is nothing to eat and they are just looking for a place to run away. Right? He later on becomes a member of the rebellion group. He becomes a member of the Santan group, right? So initially he's more focused on his personal and family life, but gradually as the novel progresses, he becomes drawn to the cause of the sannyasis, right? So Mohendra goes for active action, while Kalyani goes for passive death, right? This is because Kalyani, being a woman, can't do much. She cannot fight in the war like, Shanti, right? She is not like the other fierce woman character Shanti. But Mahendra represents the new nationalist male who will fight for freedom. He's an important character because earlier on he is focused on his own family, but then later on he embroils himself in the Santan force, right? So next is, for example, let us talk about the next character, Satyanand. He is the leader of the sannyasis, a monk who guides the rebellion against the British and the Mughal forces, right? So he is the spiritual and the ideological anchor of this entire novel, right? He embodies selflessness, devotion to the motherland, right? Towards the end of the novel, it is perhaps only Satyanand who remains selfless and virtuous till the end because he is the main leader of the Santan group, right? So he's also an important character. Right? Then you have, let us talk about Bhavanand. Okay, so he's another very prominent member of the Santan group, right? But he falls in love with Kalyani and he wishes to marry her, and for that he's even willing to forsake his promise of celibacy. Okay, so these characters, they collectively, each and every character is important in this novel, and these were some of the male characters. But in this novel, perhaps I'll be stressing more on the female characters because they are much more important, right? And there is a valid reason. So let us talk about why female characters are much more important in this novel, right? And then I'll also discuss how Bankim has shown the women characters in the novel, right? So there are some critics who very firmly believe that Bankim has strongly misogynist undertones in his novels, and Anandamath is obviously one of those novels. But I think that is not the case, right? Because the first character, the first important woman character, she is Shanti. She is Jivananda's wife, who disguises herself as a man to join the sannyasis and fight alongside them, right? It is interesting, it's very interesting to see how Bankim has made his women characters. So the characters in Anandamath, Shanti, and then the other one is Kalyani. They are both important. But the Shanti is important as it shows a new woman who will break rules, but there is a catch here, but within the limits of morality. She will break rules as she is a rebel, right? She will break, rules, but not the dharma of a being a woman or the dharma of a santan, right? So the second woman character, this was the first one. The second woman character, Kalyani. If we talk about Kalyani, she does not break rules, and hence the question of breaking dharma in her case does not arise at all, right? So both Shanti and Kalyani, they both join the order of the monks. They join the rebellion. They join the Santan group. They both join the cause to free their nation. But in both the cases, you will notice that the essence of womanhood, the essence of dharma, that remains safeguarded, and they do not transgress at all. Their male counterparts might have transgressed, but they themselves do not transgress at all, right? So Shanti puts her husband, Jivanand's lust to a standstill, right? Jivanand is Shanti's own husband, but she still refuses to come close to him or allow him to touch her, as the vow of celibacy has to be upheld, right? So hence Shanti comes across as a very strong character who does not transgress and keeps her dharma safeguarded, and also her husband's dharma safeguarded, right? Kalyani also resists Bhavanand's advancements towards her and will not marry Bhavanand even when she does not know whether her husband Mohindra is alive or not. So we can conclude, and if you observe closely, the women characters in Anandamath, they safeguard their honor and tradition. So this safeguarding of honor is very important for sustaining Bengali identity. That's what Bankim also might have thought at that point of time, right? And that is why Bankim does not make them lose their honor. For example, Kalyani and Shanti, they both do not transgress morally, but Shanti goes a mile ahead as she can adapt and change herself. She puts on the garb of a man and she lives in the mud amongst the male members, and she is a fighter too, right? But the dharma has to be maintained by her as well, right? So she does not transgress morally, even though she takes a radical step by joining, the mutt. By being in the company of men, she transgresses, but not morally. So in Anandamath, this can be seen particularly in the roles Shanti and Kalyani play, right? So Shanti enters the male circle of a full-fledged santan, and she's willing to do whatever she can to help her husband and for the cause of independence, isn't it? Now, look at how Bankim describes Shanti's beauty, and I'm quoting these lines. As you can see on the screen, she had a fresh youthfulness, and the beauty of her youth was like a lotus in bloom. Her body had an exquisite charm. Nothing could stand in the way of her loveliness. Part 1, chapter number 15. So you see how Bankim endowed her with traditional beauty of a woman and elegance of a woman, but at the same time, Shanti is a warrior as well. She joins the Santan group to help the cause of freedom and to help her nation and to help her husband. We get to know of her troubled childhood too, which prompts Shanti, to run away from home while she's a young girl, if you remember, if you go back to the novel, right? So she joins, when she was a young girl, she joined a band of ascetics and learned in their company to strengthen her body, her mind, and, she got into physical exercises and martial arts. And that is why she is physically so strong, right? So not just physically, but mentally too, she is very strong, right? So because, when her husband tries to make love to her, she realizes that this is a grave issue and that she cannot do it, and she refuses, right? So this is Shanti's mental strength, that even when she deeply loves her husband but she knows that the vow of celibacy has to be upheld, she refuses to come close to her husband. Shanti refuses because she is mentally strong, and therefore I call Shanti a according to me, I think Shanti is the most important character of this novel. Right? So Bankim had given such detailed character analysis and the past of only this character. Bankim has not explained or not delved into a detailed character analysis of Kalyani or for that matter any other character, but it's only Shanti. Bankim goes on to explain her past as well. So she, occupies an important status but an ambivalent status as she shows traits of both a man and a woman. So she represents the calm and the terrifying both. She switches from one state to the other. Male Santan in appearance and disguise, but in reality she is a woman. Right? So she becomes a new woman that Bankim envisaged for Mother India, as Mother India would be in the future. So she preserves the essence of her glorious womanhood by not transgressing ever. So there is a portrayal of the goddess through Shanti's character in one form or the other, the wild, furious and the angry Kali, and also the glorious, the gracious and the womanly Durga, or the Jagadhatri for that matter. So as Kali, Bankim shows attributes of fierceness of Bharat Mata, and as Durga, he shows the attributes of grace, power, beauty and glory to Bharat Mata, and by Bharat Mata, he does that to the character of Shanti as well. So Shanti's character has this strange duality which is important, right? So Shanti is, fierce, yet she is gracious and womanly at the same time. So therefore, I have said repeatedly, and I am saying it again, that Shanti is the most powerful character of Anandamath, right? So the other male counterparts, they are swayed by emotions, they are swayed by lust, they are swayed by greed, but Shanti does not sway away from her path at all. So this was a brief character analysis of Shanti. Now perhaps we can go on to the next character, I guess. Let us talk about Kalyani, obviously. So Kalyani, as we know, is Mahendra's devoted wife. She's young, she's beautiful, and she's the wife of a man who later on becomes a Santan, right? But unlike Shanti, she remains unambiguously a womanly wife throughout the novel. She is perhaps not as fierce as Shanti, but even she is willing to sacrifice her all for the sake of the nation, for the sake of the motherland. Right? In both the cases, in Shanti's case as well as in Kalyani's case, the essence of dharma, the essence of dharma and of womanhood has to be safeguarded, right? In the cases of both Kalyani and Shanti. So they both stand firm, each in their own circumstances, but both women are very strong and they do not fall into the trap of lust, right? Because, that vow of celibacy has to be upheld. So Kalyani also resists Bhavanand's persistence and his demand for a relationship with Kalyani. She refuses to marry Bhavanand. So, the sexual attractiveness of both the women has been the occasion for transgressive acts on the parts of their admirers. But these women, they do not sway away from their morality ever, right? And both women, both Kalyani and Shanti, are described as typically feminine, and their beauty is described by Bankim in the novel. So it can be said that Bankim was certainly no misogynist, right? Because he has created strong characters. We have seen that he was an admirer of female beauty and that he accorded an important role, to women in New India. So this clearly shows that Bankim, perhaps he was not a misogynist, as some critics blame him. And this is because, and I say this strongly, because he has created strong women characters, who have strong personality. And, that is why it cannot be really, concluded that he is a misogynist in that sense, because both these women, they represent the benevolent and the fierce forms of womanhood as represented in the larger idea of the Bharat Mata or the motherland in the novel. So this was a detailed analysis of the female characters. Now let us very quickly talk about some male characters of the novel. That is, I'll talk a bit about Bhavanand and Jivanand. As we know, Bhavanand is a monk in the group of Santans. He is not Kalyani's husband, but he becomes infatuated, with her. And Bhavanand is even ready to abandon his Santan code of practice, to which he is committed if she agrees to marry him. So he's willing to, break his own vow, his own promise for her. So Jibanand as a Santan is also committed to a celibate way of life. But he too is prepared to abandon it, if Shanti agrees to be, to unite with him. And it happens in part 3 of the novel, where the men are shown as getting deviated from their real aim of freeing their nation and giving up their duties to fulfill their desires, doesn't it? It happens. So this represents this tussle between duty and desire that Bankim shows in Anandamath repeatedly. And this duty versus desire is a very important theme in the novel. I'll discuss it later in our lectures. So both men, Bhavanand and Jivanand, are prepared to enter into forbidden relationships. Bhavanand on two occasions. First, in violation of a socio-religious norm, that is, he's lusting after someone else's wife. And second, in violation of his own Santan code and Santan law of lusting for another woman unless freedom is achieved. Right? So on two counts, he's violating his code of honor. And the other Santan, Jivanand, violates his Santan code of conduct by lusting for his own wife, as because it is important to remain a celibate. And the penalty of this wrongdoing and of this offense is death. Right? So no one who becomes a monk there can make any relations with his own wife or with any other woman for that matter. But Jivananda tries to forsake it for the sake of his own wife Shanti. But there is a catch again. Both these characters, they redeem themselves at the end, you will notice. In the case of Bhavanand, he dies in battle. He goes to the battle, knowing that, he has to die, and he broke the Santan code of honor. So Jivanand almost dies in the battle, and Jivanand, when I'm talking about Jivanand, he almost dies in the battle, but then he is revived at the end by his own wife. And when the battle is won, they both decide to go to the mountains and live as recluse, right? So both the men, Bhavanand and Jivanand, they redeemed themselves, and despite knowing that they committed a crime, did not shy away from accepting their punishment. Right. So now let us talk about briefly the kind of characters in Anandamath, which are very important from the literary point of view. Right. So you will notice that the characters in this novel, are they really characters in the real sense? Because they are mostly flat characters. They are not round in nature. They don't undergo changes in the novel. So they are mostly types. Now look at this critical line that I'll be sharing with all of you. As you can see, according to S. Moitra, Anandamath is not a novel. Anandamath is a 19th century parable of indigenousness, Swadeshiyata. Thus, there are many actors in this novel, but not a single portrayal, Charitra. There are no portrayals in a parable, there are only some types or shadowy figures. Satyanand, Jivanand, Bhavanand, Dhiranand, Shanti, all are types. That is why none of them engage in conversations, they only give lectures, much like a priest. They have mouths only, the rest of their bodies say nothing or do not exist. I am unquoting here. So therefore, these characters do not undergo changes in the novel. Right? So if you read these critical points again, you will realize that they are more or less types only. They are not really fully developed characters. They are typical characters, and they are only typical in nature. They are only flat in nature. They are not round. Their personality is not multifaceted. Right? Their personality is very, it's a single stream of thoughts which is going on. Right? So Bankim has mostly made flat characters in this novel. Right? So that is pretty much the end of this lecture here. So today we discussed some of the major characters in this novel. In the next lecture, which will be lecture number 4, I'll be discussing the various themes of this novel. I hope this lecture clarified certain doubts related to these characters and gave you all food for thought. Please stay tuned for other lectures in this lecture series on Anandamath. I'll see you very soon in the next lecture, which will be on the various themes, and I'll be taking up certain symbols and certain themes of this novel. Thank you so much, and goodbye for now.